What if the words you use every day aren't yours? What if instead they are programming you? It might sound like science fiction, but the language we wield is far more powerful than we realize. It's not just a tool for communication, it's the very blueprint of our reality. We operate under the illusion that we are using language, when, in fact, language is also using us. It's shaping our beliefs, emotions, actions, and therefore, our entire experience of the world, often in ways we aren't even aware of. How many times have you repeated phrases without truly examining their meaning, or felt a certain way because of words used to describe an event? We move through life, unconsciously reciting scripts that weren't even written by us. These are the very chains that hold us back. Consider this. Within your own mind, how often do you find yourself trapped in repetitive thought patterns? For many, a common one is, "I'm not good enough." These self-defeating narratives loop endlessly, subtly influencing our behavior and, in turn, creating the very limitations we fear. This internal dialogue acts like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where our words become the invisible bars of our self-constructed prison. This isn't a random occurrence. These self-sabotaging patterns have their origin and are more often than not deeply ingrained habits that have been passed down to us. They are the result of the language we've absorbed throughout our lives. From the well-intentioned, yet often limiting, phrases we heard as children, to the nationalistic slogans that saturate our cultural landscape, to the constant barrage of media conditioning. These phrases and narratives become the very foundations of our unconscious beliefs, and ultimately, the reality we experience. But what if this reality isn't as fixed as it appears? The way we use language is not merely a reflection of reality, it actively shapes it. It's the very foundation of how we perceive and interact with the world. The words we choose create our inner and outer experience. It shapes our individual narratives, but on a much larger scale, it can also affect entire populations. When language is wielded strategically, it can be used to control the narrative of entire nations or even the direction of global events. To understand how these forces operate is not some abstract philosophical pursuit. It's crucial for personal autonomy and well-being. Understanding the mechanics of linguistic manipulation provides the key to unlock your own power and to consciously create a life of your own choosing. It is not enough to simply understand that language is powerful. It's imperative to realize that it is the very fabric of reality itself. It's the code, the very building blocks of this reality, and we have the capacity to reshape it. We have been programmed by language, but we can also reprogram it. To illustrate this point, consider how different cultures, with their unique languages, construct their realities. An event described in one language could elicit a completely different feeling or understanding in another. The very framework of the language shapes the way the event is interpreted. It highlights the point that language is not a neutral tool. It's a lens through which we perceive and define our existence. If we examine the neurological impact of language, we start to understand it is more than just communication. Repetitive or specifically chosen words can alter our perception of reality on a physical level. Specific patterns of words trigger neural responses, creating neurological loops, which in turn dictate our experiences. This very process can be a powerful tool that we can leverage, but it can also be used against us. This power of language, the power to both create and destroy, to build and to limit, is the focus of our journey. We are not merely focusing on the destructive, limiting aspects, we're looking at how we can use it to build and empower. We need to recognize that language is the most powerful tool in existence, and we need to reclaim it. Consider the simple shift from saying, "I have to do this," to "I choose to do this." This small change in phrasing shifts our perception from obligation to agency, which completely transforms the very experience of an event. So, if the words aren't yours, who or what is programming you? And what is the intention behind it? What if certain powerful forces are manipulating our very thoughts, using our own language against us? What if the subtle linguistic patterns, repeatedly used by mainstream media and political authorities, are specifically designed to evoke certain emotional responses and control our behavior. Are we not then mere puppets in a grander, far more complex scheme? Are we being played by the very language that we use every day? But if language is a code, can we not learn to reprogram it? So if these words are not yours, if they are indeed programming you, let's take a closer look at this programming, shall we? It's not some shadowy conspiracy relegated to the fringes of society. The manipulation of language happens in plain sight, every single day. Consider how advertising works. It doesn't sell products, it sells feelings. It carefully constructs narratives designed to trigger emotions, promising fulfillment, belonging, or even escape. Watch a commercial closely. Notice the words they use. Words like irresistible, must-have, revolutionary. These aren't simply describing features. They're linguistic hooks designed to bypass your logical mind and tap into your desires. They create a sense of lack, of something missing in your life that can only be filled by this product. It's a subtle form of mind control, playing on your fears and aspirations, and if you are not paying attention, you will be swept away by this tide of carefully crafted language. This is the subtle yet pervasive art of linguistic manipulation, operating just below the surface of our awareness. Think about how many of your purchasing decisions are based on these carefully constructed narratives, these spells that have been cast by the language used. Now, let's turn our attention to political discourse, where language is often used not to inform, but to persuade, to control the narrative, and to manufacture consent. The deliberate use of emotionally charged words like freedom, security, or terror can evoke powerful reactions, bypassing critical thinking and swaying public opinion. Consider the term war on terror. The very phrase creates a sense of constant threat, justifying extreme measures and curtailing personal freedoms. The use of terms like us versus them create artificial divisions and incite conflict, all through carefully chosen language. It's a modern version of newspeak, the deliberate construction of language to control thought. And this isn't confined to political speeches. It permeates news cycles, subtly shaping our perceptions of the world, creating a very specific and very controlled version of reality. The way that a story is framed, the words used to describe an event, can drastically alter your interpretation of that event. Two different news outlets can describe the same event using different language, and they create two very different realities for the viewer. You need only to pay attention to the language being used to recognize the intent behind it. How often have you heard an event described in such a way that you felt afraid, or angry, or even hopeful? The words they use are not neutral. They are carefully chosen to evoke a desired emotional response. But these techniques aren't just used in advertising and politics. The linguistic framing extends into many areas of our lives, shaping our perceptions in ways we often don't even recognize. The same event can be presented as a catastrophe or an opportunity, depending on the language used to describe it. This isn't merely about semantics. It's about controlling the narrative, constructing the very framework within which we understand the world. For example, consider the phrase economic downturn as opposed to economic restructuring. The former conjures images of despair and recession, while the latter implies a more positive, transitional phase. Both might be describing the same event, but the emotional impact is completely different because the language creates a different interpretation. This highlights the subtle yet powerful way in which language shapes our reality. The examples are endless. Once you start to see the patterns, you will find them everywhere. Consider the language used in corporate statements, often filled with vague terms, designed to avoid accountability or to create a positive spin on a negative outcome. These are not just mistakes in language. They are deliberate strategies to manipulate your perception of reality. And this manipulation extends into the most intimate aspect of your life, your inner world. The real insidious nature of this external manipulation is that it doesn't stay external. The language you are constantly exposed to eventually becomes your internal dialogue. The limiting beliefs perpetuated by society, the fear-based narratives of the media. These all become the very patterns of thought that cycle through your mind. You start to repeat these phrases without awareness, not realizing that the chains are being forged from the very language you use, which you think is yours. The negativity that pervades our culture, the endless cycle of comparison and judgment, is absorbed into our subconscious, shaping our very perception of our own self. The media constantly bombard you with messages of deficiency, of not being enough. This then becomes your internal monologue. You may not consciously be aware of this process, but that's part of the manipulation. It's designed to be insidious, to take root in the shadows of your unconscious, until it becomes the very foundation of your reality. This cycle is what keeps us trapped. It is the constant loop of programming. External language becomes internal language, which shapes your behavior and perception of reality, which then continues the cycle. These external narratives become your internal narratives. This isn't some abstract theory. This is the very mechanism that keeps you trapped, and this very mechanism can be reversed. But here is where the real awakening begins. What if, instead of being a passive recipient of language, you could become an active creator? What if you had the power to consciously choose the words you use, and therefore consciously choose the reality you experience? This isn't some far-off dream. It's your inherent power, the power that has been waiting to be reclaimed. The very act of becoming aware of the manipulative power of language is the first step in breaking free from its control. The moment you see the patterns, the moment you recognize how language is used to shape your reality, you begin to regain your agency. This is the moment you can start to rewrite your code, reprogram your reality, and consciously create your own experience. This is not about escaping reality. It's about understanding its true nature. It's about recognizing that the reality you experience is not fixed. It's a construction, and you are the architect of that construction. This is the shift from victim to agent, and it is the first step towards true freedom. The power to choose your words, to choose your narrative, is the power to choose your reality. Think of language as a code, the code of this reality. Just like a computer program, language is the fundamental structure that underlies the experiences you perceive. And just like a programmer can manipulate code, so too can you manipulate language. The language you use is not just describing reality, it's creating it. You have the ability to rewrite that code, to change the very patterns that shape your experience. Imagine your mind as a computer and language as the programming language that dictates its operations. The negative self-talk, the limiting beliefs, those are just lines of code that you can rewrite. Once you recognize the language is the code, and you are the coder, your reality is at your fingertips. The implications are profound. If you can manipulate language, you can manipulate reality itself. This idea may seem radical, but it ties in directly with the idea of this reality being a simulation. If this is a simulation, then language is the code that runs the simulation. You, as the conscious observer, are the programmer, and therefore you have the power to change that code and change the simulation itself. It brings a new dimension of understanding to the simulation hypothesis. How do you begin to rewrite this code? How do you break free from the programming that has been running on autopilot for so long? The answer lies in the power of affirmations and mantras. These are not just empty phrases. They are carefully chosen words, repeated with intention, designed to reprogram the subconscious mind. Just as society has used specific phrases to control the narrative, you can use specific phrases to create your own narrative. When you repeat affirmations like, "I am worthy," "I am capable," "I am abundant," you are not just stating a wish. You are actively rewriting the code of your being. You are imprinting new patterns onto your subconscious mind, replacing the limiting beliefs with empowering ones. Start by choosing a simple affirmation and begin repeating it throughout the day, consciously, with intention. Feel the meaning behind the words, visualize the reality they represent, and you will start to see the changes unfold. These are the first steps on a new path, away from the limiting external programming and towards your own conscious creation. It's not just positive thinking, It's a conscious act of reprogramming your internal world through the power of language, and it goes even deeper than that. By changing the way you speak about yourself and your experiences, you can literally change your perception of those very experiences. If you are constantly repeating to yourself that you are unlucky or a failure, you will continue to live that experience. Your words become a self-fulfilling prophecy, shaping your perception and therefore shaping the reality you experience. Consider the simple shift in language we discussed earlier. I have to work versus I get to work. One phrase implies obligation, a burden. The other implies opportunity, a privilege. The very feeling associated with these two phrases is completely different, even though the action itself, the actual work, is identical. It is not an accident. The words you use shape your reality. When you begin to reframe your experiences, when you choose language that is empowering rather than limiting, you begin to see your world in a completely different light. You begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You begin to see your strengths instead of your weaknesses. And the world around you, in turn, begins to reflect that internal shift. It all begins with the language, the very words you choose to use. But this isn't just about positive thinking, it's about intention. When language is used with a specific purpose, with a clear intention behind it, it becomes even more powerful. It moves beyond just describing reality. It becomes a force to create reality. The manipulative use of language, like the advertising example, is powerful because of the intention behind it, to create a desire, a need, in the viewer. And the same goes for when we are programming our own reality. The language used with intention has a much greater impact. When you repeat an affirmation like, I am worthy, and you feel the truth of that statement within your being, that intention amplifies the power of the language, setting the stage for its manifestation. It is the combination of word and feeling, of language and intention, that creates reality. So what happens when we move beyond merely reframing our present and begin to use our words to actively create our future? Our words are not simply describing reality, they are actively creating it, moment by moment. This might seem like a bold claim, but think back to how the external language shaped your internal reality. The process is the same, but we are consciously revering it. It's like creating a blueprint for the future you want to experience. This isn't about wishful thinking, it's about harnessing the power of language to shape your reality intentionally. It's about understanding that your words are not just passing thoughts, they are the seeds of your future. The limiting phrases that you have been repeating create your limiting reality, and the empowering phrases will create your empowering future. So what future are you programming? Are you creating limitations or possibilities? If you're creating limitations, the good news is you can now rewrite the code. And this power is amplified even further when you combine language with visualization. When you hold a specific image in your mind, and you describe that image using powerful, intentional language, you are impressing that intention onto the subconscious mind. You are giving it the blueprint, the code, for the reality you want to create. If you combine the phrase, I am abundant, with the image of overflowing abundance, that image and that statement create a powerful feedback loop, reinforcing the intention and bringing that intention into reality. This isn't just a theoretical concept. This is a practical tool that you can begin to use today and to manifest your own unique reality. Think of visualization as the storyboard of your life, where you begin to write the script using the language you have now begun to understand is the code for this reality. The power is now in your hands to use this knowledge. Remember, you are not just a passive observer in this reality. You are an active co-creator, and you have the power to shape your experience. Through the conscious use of language, through the intention that you infuse into your words, you begin to align with the forces that shape this reality. The very same forces that have been used to manipulate are also the same forces that you can now use to empower. This is not about achieving some grand, external success. It's about taking control of your internal world, and therefore, your experience of the external world. It's about realizing that you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your own reality, and you are finally beginning to understand the language of creation, the code of this very reality. But if you can reprogram your own mind, what else can you reprogram? So, what does all of this mean for you, the conscious observer of your own experience? It means that you are not merely a receiver of language, you are its very origin. You are the one who dictates its meaning, the one who breathes life into the symbols and sounds that shape your world. You are not just interpreting a pre-existing script. You are the author, the playwright, the director, and the actor all in one. Think back to the beginning of this journey, to the idea that your thoughts are not your own. Now, consider that the language you use, the very code of this reality, is yours to control. This is the ultimate perspective shift, realizing that the power to shape your world lies not outside of you, but within. The language you speak is not imposed upon you. It is an expression of your own creative force. This isn't just a metaphor. This is the fundamental nature of reality. If this reality is a simulation, then you are the one writing the code, and the words you use are the lines of that code. You are the programmer, and you are in control of the simulation, and this is a power inherent to your being, not something you need to learn or earn. This is your birthright. Now, let's solidify this understanding by revisiting the power of affirmations and how they become a key to manifesting your desired reality. Remember the external manipulation we explored earlier, how society uses specific phrases to control the narrative. You can use that same power, but consciously, to create your own reality. Conscious language creation is the active engagement with the very fabric of existence. So, how do you practically apply this? Begin with a clear intention, a vision of the reality you want to create, and then select the words that best express that intention. If you desire abundance, craft affirmations like, "I'm a magnet for prosperity," and repeat this with feeling and intention, not just as an empty phrase. If you seek clarity, use affirmations such as, "My mind is clear and my path is illuminated." You are not just stating a wish. You are actively programming your subconscious mind, aligning it with the reality that you intend to experience. This isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's the conscious use of language to rewrite the very code of your being. It's a method of taking the external manipulation and using it, consciously, to create your own experience and to reprogram the limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. You are becoming the conscious coder of your own simulation. The most powerful revelation of all is that language is not merely describing your reality. It's the very tool with which you create it. It's the brushstroke on the canvas of your life, the note in the symphony of your existence, the code that structures the simulation of your being. The words you choose are not neutral. They are imbued with your intention, your emotion, and your belief, and they become the foundation of your experiences. Think back to the idea that external language becomes your internal language, which then shapes your reality. Now, you are consciously choosing the language, you are consciously choosing the code. This is the true power of linguistic awareness, the understanding that you are the active creator of your own experiences. The limiting beliefs you once held, the fears that haunted you, the doubts that plagued you, these are all just linguistic constructs that you have the power to dismantle. You can dismantle them through the conscious use of empowering language. You can build the reality you desire simply through the conscious choosing of your words. This isn't just an abstract concept, it's a practical reality that you can begin to implement right now. The power, therefore, lies in your conscious choice, in your ability to select the language that aligns with the reality you desire. You are not trapped by your circumstances. You are the one who creates the circumstances. You are the creator, not the victim. This is not a passive understanding. It's an active engagement with your inherent power. Think back to the start of this journey, where it may have felt like you were adrift, a passive observer in a world that was beyond your control. Now, you are the captain of your ship, navigating your course with the compass of conscious language. You have the power to choose the words that describe your journey, and therefore, you have the power to choose your journey. Your personal experience of reality is completely up to you, and this is a profound freedom. The realization that you can choose your narrative is the realization that you are the master of your own destiny. And it is in this realization that the chains of limitation fall away, and you step into the power of your true potential. But the implications of this understanding extend far beyond the individual and touch upon our collective reality. By understanding the manipulative power of language, you are not only freeing yourself, you are also contributing to the liberation of all beings and the creation of a better world. When enough individuals awaken to the true power of language, society itself will begin to transform, because that society is also built through language. It is built through the shared narrative of its people. The limiting beliefs, the fear-based narratives, the divisive rhetoric that permeates our society, these can all be dismantled through the conscious use of language. This isn't just some utopian fantasy, it's a very practical reality. By being aware of the linguistic manipulation all around you, you can resist its influence and instead create the change that is needed, and this change begins within you and will then reflect into the world. The conscious use of language not only transforms your own life, it also transforms the world around you. So, what does this liberation actually mean? It means breaking free from the societal programming that has shaped your beliefs, your emotions, and your perceptions. It means questioning everything, not blindly accepting the narratives that are presented to you and choosing your own narrative. This is not about rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's about reclaiming your inherent power and living in alignment with your authentic truth. The understanding of linguistic manipulation is a key to unlocking your potential. This is the awakening, the moment you realize the matrix was just a set of codes that you are now understanding, and you are now able to rewrite them. This is the moment you stop being a puppet and become a conscious creator. The society, the rules, the limitations are all just language constructs that you now have the power to rewrite. The freedom that is found in understanding this concept is beyond words. It's an awakening from the slumber of unconscious control and into the radiant light of your own divine power. You are stepping into a new world where the possibilities are as limitless as your ability to imagine them. But how do you use this understanding to create the world you want? You begin by consciously creating your own narratives, actively shaping your experience, and becoming the co-creator of your reality, and not just a passive observer within someone else's narrative. This is not an abstract concept. It is a very practical path. Start by examining the language you use in your daily life. Notice the phrases you repeat to yourself, the stories you tell about your experiences, the way that you describe yourself and your world. Then, begin to consciously reframe these narratives. If you catch yourself using limiting phrases, consciously replace them with empowering ones. If you find yourself focused on negativity, intentionally shift your attention towards positivity. This isn't just about changing your words. It's about changing your perspective, your feeling, and your entire experience of reality. This is how you take the theory and make it practical. You are taking the very language that was used to create a limiting experience and using it to create an empowering one. It is a fundamental shift from victim to creator, and it is a path you can begin walking on right now. And so, we arrive at a profound understanding that language is no longer a tool of limitation, but a powerful tool of creation. This is a metamorphosis, a complete transformation in perspective. What once seemed like a cage is now revealed to be a canvas, a tool that you can use to create the reality you desire. The same language that has been used to manipulate is now the same language that is being used to liberate. This isn't just a theoretical concept. It's a personal experience, an internal shift that changes everything. Think back to the feeling of powerlessness when you first realized how language is used to control, and now compare that to the feeling of empowerment, knowing you can take that same tool and use it consciously for your own creation. The language has not changed. It is your relationship to it that has. You are now in control of the narrative. You are now in control of the code, and the world around you will begin to reflect the reality that you are intentionally creating. This is the journey you have been on, and now you are empowered to create the world you desire. Now, let's revisit the questions we started with. Is language merely a tool for communication or something more? It is, as we have explored, so much more than just a means of conveying information. It is the code that shapes reality itself. It's the very architecture of experience, and it is your primary tool for creation. Are we simply passive recipients of language or active creators? We are both, but the key is to shift from the unconscious passive receiver into the conscious active creator, and this is the very shift that you have now undergone. We are no longer bound by the limitations of external programming. We are empowered by our own conscious intention. Can we truly shape our reality through our words? Absolutely. Through the conscious use of language, through the intention and emotion that we infuse into our words, we actively shape the reality we experience. This is not just a theory. It is the foundational understanding of how reality works. And through this understanding, we are now able to consciously create the world we want. So, how do you put this into practice? Let's create a specific affirmation, a specific intention to solidify this understanding, to demonstrate that this is more than just theory. Begin by focusing on what you want to create. Feel the experience of that creation as real in this moment. And now, repeat these words. I am the conscious creator of my reality, and my world is reflecting the power of my intention. Repeat this affirmation with feeling, with intention, and know that this language is not merely describing a future state. It is actively bringing it into being. This is the power of conscious language creation, the ability to shape reality through carefully chosen words that are infused with intention and emotion. You are now consciously rewriting the code. You are now consciously creating your own experience, and the results will reflect the power of this understanding. This is not a wish. This is a command, issued by you and carried out by the language of reality. And the mystery of who is programming us, that mystery has also now been revealed. The program is not coming from some shadowy external entity. It is, and has always been, your own unconscious beliefs that have been holding you back. It is the stories you tell yourself, the limitations you accept, the fears you hold on to. These are the ones that are running the program. The external language and programming is only there to reinforce that internal programming, and that internal programming is now in your control. You are no longer bound by the limitations of those unconscious programs. Through conscious awareness, through the understanding of the language of creation, you have reclaimed your power, and you are now the one who dictates your reality. The answers were not outside of you, they were within, and it is the key to unlocking your true potential. This isn't about finding someone to blame. It's about taking responsibility and stepping into your power as the creator of your own experience. And so, with this new understanding, you are no longer a victim, you are a creator. You are the one writing the code, shaping your destiny, and creating your reality. The limitations that seemed so real, the fears that held you back, the doubts that plagued you, they are all just constructs of language, and you have now gained the understanding to rewrite them. The power to shape your experience was always within you. You just needed to understand the language of its creation. And now the world is open to you, full of possibility and potential, limited only by the boundaries of your imagination. This is a moment of profound empowerment, the realization that you are the conscious author of your own life, the master of your own destiny, and the creator of your own reality. The path is now open. It is yours to walk. But this is not where the journey ends. This is where it truly begins. If language creates reality, what else can we create with our minds? What are the boundaries of our own power? This is the beginning of even deeper levels of understanding and an even grander exploration of consciousness itself. The power that you have just begun to understand is not a static concept. It's a dynamic, ever-evolving force that can be used to create any experience you can imagine. The implications of this are truly limitless. You have just stepped into a world of unlimited potential, where the boundaries of reality are defined only by your beliefs, and you now have the tools to consciously change those very beliefs. What will you create now that you understand the language of creation? And the implications of this are not just for the individual, but for the collective, for the entire world. When we understand that we are all co-creators of reality, we can then begin to consciously shape our collective experience through language. This means shifting the narratives that are divisive, that are fear-based, and creating narratives that are inclusive, that are empowering, and that are built on love and compassion. This isn't just a theoretical concept. It's a practical path for creating a more harmonious world, a world where all beings are valued and cherished. We are all connected, all part of the same infinite ocean of consciousness, and the language we use to describe ourselves, and the language we use to describe each other, will create that shared reality. You are now empowered to use that language to create the world that you want to see. The journey is now in your hands. You have the knowledge, you have the power, and you have the tools to shape your reality consciously. So, begin by actively experimenting with your language, creating your own affirmations, reframing your limiting beliefs, and intentionally taking charge of your own narrative. Do not just accept the language that is given to you, consciously create the language you want to use. Feel the power that resonates from these carefully chosen words, and watch as they begin to shape your world. This is a journey of discovery, a journey of empowerment, and a journey that is unique to your own path of awakening. Do not be afraid to experiment. Do not be afraid to fail. Do not be afraid to create, because in every word, you are creating your reality. The more you experiment, the more you will understand this incredible power you have within you. And for those who wish to delve deeper into the vast ocean of conscious creation, there are many pathways to explore. Seek out books and teachings on the power of language, explore metaphysical concepts, investigate the very nature of consciousness, and join communities of like-minded individuals who are also seeking to understand the power of their own creation. The journey of conscious creation is an ongoing one, an infinite exploration, and this is just the beginning of your own personal transformation. This video is just a ripple in the vast ocean of possibilities, and you now have the tools to create your own unique waves. So, go forth, experiment, create, and most of all, remember your power and the language of creation.